Hi people, welcome to Blue UK Jazz Dance. That's me in the middle there. I want to share with people my legacy of leadership. My legacy of leadership as a dancer was looking ahead. From a very young age, I created my own jazz dance style, and I always wanted to be a jazz dancer on stage, but not as a professional. I always wanted to do it as a hobby, but I always wanted to do it from a perspective of being a dancer and what is called an interdisciplinary dancer and practitioner, which was basically from a director, producer perspective, and from talking about my dance form. And looking ahead basically was something my parents taught me. When I was a child, I already knew what I wanted to be. I was a very politicized child, so looking ahead I wanted to be a barrister, a cricketer and a dancer, all the same things. Dancing as part of my chill out, dancing as part of my bonding with my community, bonding with my friends. A barrister to help my people because they were facing injustice. I was born in 1964. That time there was no discrimination laws out at that time. So I got to know about the social injustices that black people were facing throughout, the 60s. From my parents, from the parents' talks, I was very politicized from very young, and I wanted to be a barrister as an individual. That's very important to me as a person. So one of the things was an independent dancer. Amazing situations arose for me where I always followed dance, and dance led to me sharing with other people. But looking ahead was a philosophy and was an action our parents taught us in home. So one of the key things we had in our homes, we had rotas from a very young age. And both of my parents are from the Caribbean. My dad's Jamaican, former dad's Jamaican, and mum is Grenadian. And what happened, they grew up in impoverished circumstances, and they both lived off the land. Their families lived off the food that they grew. Do you know what I'm saying? They both had farms as well. So they had pigs, etc., etc., chickens. They grew them to eat them. So what happened, farmers learned to look ahead, and they taught their children that was important, and for them to think about what they wanted to do and work ahead to that. Now my amazing story is that where I went with my jazz dancing, you could never have conceived it. What happened from a very young age, I created my own own boy show in Grenada after being going there after rehabilitation counselling. Looking ahead comes into that because what happened was people tried to kill me at my primary school, an all-white primary school, Catholic school. And my parents decided, looking ahead, there had to be some form of rehabilitation intervention, and they needed their children to have cultural grounding. Because in Britain they only saw negative images of black people, and they wanted them to see black people in all sorts of dimensions. So what happened was my mum, Grenadian mother, took us to Grenada to meet her grandmother and her family, and they live in the rural areas of Grenada. And it was really basically a lot of black people we saw in that community, and we saw different peoples who own land. So we saw people on land, black teachers, black taxi drivers, everything you could think of in leadership, we saw it, and we saw people lived in a humble way, basically. But our parents wanted to see, we saw tailors, we saw dressmakers, we saw different houses, impoverished houses, people had impoverished houses, or people had no house at all living outside, and you saw people who were wealthy, all living side by side in harmony, together in a community. And our parents wanted to see that because we were born in the slums of Moss Side. And that's all we seen was black people in the slums, and our parents wanted to let us see black people of all different types of denominations, all different types of wealth in their living side by side, which was important, and it changed me as an individual. So when I came back to UK, I'd come back to the UK after doing a one boy show in Grenada, and I came back and did that one boy show in Britain because that's one of the things. Looking ahead, basically I was a special education needs child, and I wanted to improve my reading, my writing, and my confidence to read out loud and write and then read out loud. So that's where the one boy show came in as an individual. Cut long story short, dance, looking ahead, I recognised that dance is what made me stand out the crowd. Sports made me stand out the crowd, so I used these two to build my confidence because I recognised that these two things gave me confidence. They made me feel independent, they made me feel good about who I was. I self-taught myself. My father taught me sports, but I developed it myself, and as an individual, something confident I was confident at doing. So I had a belief, I can learn, and I transferred that learning to academic learning at school. Put this way, I was written off in school, got low IQ tests, and as an individual, I was written off and put on the bottom tables. But I came off the bottom table slowly but surely in the last years of school. But I was considered to be a person who never be able to get exams, etc. And I just failed my 11 plus. But looking ahead, that was a really good thing, because I was written off as a person who could never even take 11 plus, and I showed that I could do. In my school, I got the most merit stars ever for writing, for sports, for music, anything to do with visual arts, spatial awareness activities. I got merit stars, and then I was a leading representative of my school from 8 years old. I returned from Grenada after showing that I was a prodigy in sports in Grenada. In Grenada, what happened was I got to know that people got scholarships off the island if they showed that they're good in sports or music. They didn't have that in the UK for us, but what it made me realise how important I was as a person, because in Grenada they identified, boy, if you were here in Grenada and you showed that sort of prodigy ability, you would be supported and helped to get a scholarship into academic education. And that was good, because I was written off as a person who couldn't get academic education. So looking ahead, when I came back, I really gave a lot of my time into sports as an individual. And so what happened, they recognised that 8 years old is when competition sports started in my school, and they recognised I was a leading sportsman in my school. Not only at the age of 8-year-olds, among the 8-year-olds I was the best, among the 9-year-olds I was the best, among the 10-year-olds and 11-years-olds I was the best. And what it did, it brought Lancashire Cricket Ground to give me a place in primary school, in secondary school, and Stella Harriers to give me a place when I went to secondary school. And City football offered me a place, but I couldn't take that. So I took Lancashire Cricket Ground's place in secondary school, and I took Stella Harriers' place when I went to secondary school. So I walked into school, the first person to have to walk into school to be a representative of Lancashire Cricket and Stella Harriers running academy. I was the first person to have to do that in my primary school, and that was important because it made me feel important going to school. Looking ahead, it made me feel confident about myself, and it made me feel special, and that was important because when I went to secondary school, I was put in bottom classes, not just a bottom table, and I was written off. Again, as an individual, as an individual, broke stereotypes in my primary and secondary school, because most special education, these children were not the best at sports, we're not the best at visual arts, we're not the best in music, etc. And I was, I'm saying. And the reason was because people were unaware. I got diagnosed wrongly. I got diagnosed as a sly learner, but I was actually a person with dyslexia. I had intelligence as an individual, and I was using my intelligence, and I did it proactively, because I recognised, look, if I don't feel special, sports made me feel special about myself. Everybody needs to have something to feel special about. And looking ahead, I knew that the sports made me feel good, so I gave time to that, and that's what I did as an individual. My parents, looking ahead, got me an academic coach from 8 years old to the age of 26. He transformed my life and who I was. He told me you can gain the knowledge, the experience and skills to go to university, which was one of my aims, because I wanted to be a barrister. I said to individuals in my early learning years, and he said you can do that, but you have to work hard as an individual. One of the key things in looking ahead, what happened was I became a prodigy of sports and dance and supporting fundraising in schools and outside school. I was a brilliant fundraiser, and it led me to eventually dancing led to me meeting the Dance Fair of Harlem. Dancing led me to be called in to do a project called Student Empowering Students, people coming from abroad to Britain. I met them, and the idea was to break stereotypes, share information, but to break stereotypes, because they had the negative stereotypes about West Indian children. In 1981, I left secondary school, and I left there really quite sad, because I was put in for 10 O-levels and only got one, and I came out with 1 O-level in art, not knowing the importance of it. I failed 9, and that was because of my dyslexia, unknown dyslexia. Everybody got that. To plan for it was very hard, but also because I had visual stress and asthma was 2 other symptoms which they were diagnosed wrongly, as well as my dyslexia. But one of the key things when I left school, I didn't feel disheartened because I did well, because the type of schools I went to, there was a lot of unhealthy activities that took place. So violent bullying was one, or having to defend myself. Being written off in the school was one of the key things. It was important. I took myself out of bottom classes and got into top classes in every subject, but I failed, and I was called underachiever. But I didn't feel bad about that, and I decided to go to college to resit my O levels. But what happened? I went to all-white college called Loreto College at the time, and I had a negative experience there. Within 2 weeks, I decided I'm going to leave. I don't want to go through another unhealthy environment in my learning. I was very serious about my learning because I created my own dance group. I was helping in a lot of groups. As an individual, I became an arts manager, administrator, not in position, but as an advocate, as a person in action within my community, which was important because what happened, the riots of 1981 took place, and our culture, African Caribbeans, were demeaned wrongly. And as an individual, what happened, black presence in Britain conference took place in 1981, and I was part of that. And I became part of the arts manager, administrator, promoting the positive images and energy of my African and African culture, heritage, art, very seriously throughout the country as an individual. And I went around the country as an individual, making sure I was tapping into positive activities and developments as an arts manager, administrator, and as a dancer and dance practitioner, an interdisciplinary dance practitioner who created this character called The Adventures of the Swing Kid. Also, I co-founded with my brother the first ever avant-garde jazz funk group, and what happened, we created the first sort of dance halls that transformed, transformational dance halls that brought a wider music policy. We brought soul, funk, disco, jazz, house into the dance hall. And what happened, we brought fashion shows, and we brought an which catered to an intergenerational audience that never happened before. And that was part of fundraising for the church that we're in. Me and my brother was chair of the Grenadian Association, I was the secretary of the Grenadian Association. We did a lot of arts and activities to celebrate Grenadian culture, which was very, very important as well as an individual. So one of the key things in 81, what happened from 81 to 2020, my focus looking ahead was always to promote my jazz dancing and develop my jazz dancing. I pioneered my own styles, my own learning and thinking, and this is me dancing in this picture here in the Mixed Movement Festival, the first one in 2011, and it's amazing. People can't believe I'm still dancing. I'm still dancing because what happened was I looked ahead in what I wanted to do, and I looked before I leapt into what I was going to do. I wanted to be an engineer, barrister, boom, it looked like I was not going to make that. I wanted to be an RF pilot. I looked before I leap, and I concentrated to see if I could do that. Unfortunately, due to dyslexia, I never made that occupation, but at the same time, I was always dancing. And what happened in 1986, what happened from 81 to 86, I decided I wanted to be a stage jazz dancer, seriously. So I secretly started to go to classes. I started to go to modern, jazz, ballet, African, tap, all types of dancing. I went to private lessons because what happened was if I wanted to be taken seriously, and I wanted to take dance seriously, I had to study it seriously, so that's what I did. And it proved to be fruitful because what happened in 1986, I realised I'm not going to be an RF pilot. That's why I wanted to be an officer pilot. And what happened, I had the skill to join a new group which was called Jesters, the first ever contemporary dance group company ever in Manchester, cooperative. I had the ability because I've been dancing from 81, 86. People were unaware to that fact, how many different dance styles I was doing and behind the scenes. And I trained myself, and that's one of the key things. I'm very proud for it. I used to go to classes. I found out the leading teachers in Manchester and I went to see them, told them what my aspirations was to do was to develop my own dance style. And what happened in 86, looking before I leap, people were saying to me, go to London, join the commercial dance development. Well, I had teachers here who made me aware, don't join the commercial world, stay to the arts. If you know the history of the arts is going to give you recognition. Commercialization is very short and it bastardizes your culture. Don't do that. I didn't do that, and I wasn't going to go because as a person in 1985, I became a teenage father. I was 20 years old, so that's one of the key things. I wasn't going to leave Manchester anyway, one of the things. But I didn't think about it. So when people said it, I didn't think about it because I believed in my own city. I believed in my own development. And this picture shows that I had a dream for it. And what happened, people are unaware that I used cross-training. I was a sportsman and I explored all different types of sports to improve my dance. That's how my dance developed. It wasn't necessary from I was dancing from very young socially, and the oral tradition, they developed themselves different from class, and I developed my own learning and training, looking looking before I leapt, by looking into dance, looking into sports science, looking into dance science, sports psychology, sports physiology, dance physiology. And me looking into dance physiology saved my life, saved my career as a dancer, because what happened, I suffered from a lot of injuries when I started to do dance. Never sports. Only one injury I've had in sports was hamstring. But when I started to dance, I suffered from a lot of injuries. The reason was my body was built like a sportsman, and nobody told me I had to transform the body from a sports body into a dance body. That happened through me looking before I leapt. I sought to look what I needed to become a professional dancer, and I found a book called Injury Dance Prevention. That transformed my life. So I transformed my body from a dance body into a sports body. From a sports body into a dance body. And it transformed other people's lives, because many people were not aware of physiology. I was. A lot of people were damaging themselves in sports, damaging themselves in dance, like myself, and I was the one who saw the books and said to people, no, you need to start to understand dance physiology. Not only that, dance psychology, dance practice, dance processes, and you have to know how to maintain yourself as a dancer, which is important, because the dancers are the most get the most injured in all